council had been set today to vote on UNISFA, and now it's being negotiated. It seems like there's a disagreement with the Secretary General's report on support provided by the mission to the Joint Border Verification and Monitoring Mechanism. So some people are saying that it's a totally it doesn't work. No work is being done, and so the 500 troops are essentially a waste. And I wanted to know, other than just say it should continue to be paid for, can you articulate from this podium or sometime during this, what is the rationale for continuing without changes
I think the mission provides critical work in an area that has been a flashpoint of conflict in the past. Obviously, the mission, as every other peacekeeping mission, operates under the mandate of the Security Council, and we'll obviously wait to see what Security Council members have to say and what the resolution looks like, and we'll implement the resolution as directed by the Security Council.
Right, but the question is not about the mission as a whole. It's specifically about this JBVMM. And is it the Secretary General's position that this thing is actually functional, that there is something to be supported?
The Secretary General's position has been articulated through his reports to the Council and briefings as it's under very close discussion by council members now. I'm not going to add to what I've already said.
There's been a number of lobbying disclosures made in Washington by the Joseph Kabila government, at least $5.6 million of lobbying seeking to convince the U.S. Congress that, I guess, that continued presidency makes sense. What I wanted to know is, what's the relationship between determinations made, let's say, by OCHA and others to issue aid appeals, if in fact the government is spending money lobbying the government of another country so that a person could stay on past their term? Is there any relation? Do you look at those
the aid, the humanitarian aid is focused on helping people, and as long as people need help, we will do our utmost to help them.
Do you have any recommendation to governments that if in fact there are, as people say, the level of displacement in DRC is higher now than at any other stage, that maybe the $5.6 million should be spent on that rather than lobbying?
It's not for me to get into it. As I said, if people need help, we will do whatever we can to help.
And I wanted to ask you about the World Tourism WTO organization. Now that the Georgian candidate has been at least recommended by the executive board, I wanted to ask you again, maybe you saw it. At the time I raised it to you, you said you had seen it. Jeffrey Sachs issued an open letter supporting the South Korean
I think
candidate.
I answered the question on it.
Well, did you, other than your statement here from the podium, that as with WIPO, that I guess they're listening here, but was anything actually conveyed to Jeffrey Sachs or to the head of WIPO that these activities were inappropriate, or was this
as far as Jeffrey Sachs is concerned, whatever conversations he and the Secretary General had, I'm not privy to.
Just first, I'd asked you about Cote d'Ivoire before, about about Bouaké being subject to rebel, or not rebel, excuse me, mutineering soldiers firing in the air. Now they say Abidjan has been the subject of a rebellion that was supposedly negotiated away and now is back on. What's the mission doing? What does the UN think?
My understanding is, I would say that obviously Cote d'Ivoire has made a lot of progress on the path to stability, national reconciliation, and social cohesion, which is one of the reasons that, as you know, the UN peacekeeping mission is closing at the end of June of this year. The UN, the mission encourages the Ivorian people to favor dialogue and general interest to consolidate the gains achieved so far and pursue institutional reforms, in particular in the security sector. The substantive mandate of the mission ended April 30th, and the mission is clearly in liquidation phase and therefore does not any longer have the capacity to monitor. So as you will recall, over the years, we had troops there that were able to be deployed and do a monitor. Given the state of the mission now, as we get to the drawdown, we know most of the peacekeeping troops, if not, have all left, and we no longer have the capacity to monitor. Matthew, and then we'll get our guest.
Okay, and thanks for that, the if asked. I just wanted to nail down this. You'd said for 2 days in a row that the video of the speech in London was going to go on the UN's website. I have seen that UNA UK has finally put it up, but
it's on there. It's on the UNA UK website. The technical reason we're trying to get the hard files, and we're having a little trouble.
It's not a rights issue.
No, it's not a rights issue. We'll get it as soon as we get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Matthew Lee, Inner City Press. On that topic, besides the attempts to raise funds, I wanted to ask you for Canada's view of whether you said should live up to its responsibility. It seems like for almost 6 years, the UN refused to acknowledge that its peacekeepers had inadvertently brought cholera, causing this. So I wanted to know, can you just say, what is the responsibility that you're referring to? in Canada's view, did the UN more likely than not bring cholera to Haiti, and was not admitting it one of the reasons that money wasn't able to be raised in those 6 years? Just like, and because the same issue exists as to Kosovo, where they're basically delaying a payment to people that got lead poisoning in a camp because they refused to acknowledge how they got lead poisoning in the UN camp. So I just wonder if you could address that. And secondarily, the role of the Dominican Republic, which is next door. Recently, the foreign minister of the Dominican Republic met with the Secretary General. We saw his readout. We didn't see the Secretary General's. What is the role of this country, this neighborly country, and what did you find out in terms of that during your visit? Thanks.
So on the issue of cholera, if you look at Canada's contribution over the years of what we've been trying to do is actually trying to help the population affected, try to help the communities affected, make sure that actually when there was risk of outpours of cholera, that there could be mitigation, and that actually we are working on the sanitation and the water to ensure that infrastructure to ensure that actually we get the proper infrastructure to minimize the risk of future outbreaks of cholera. And this has been our approach all along, and we were there many years ago to actually assist with that. And when the request by the Secretary General was made in the fall, we answered present, and we said, here's what we want to do. We announced additional millions in January that were focused on that kind of approach. On the second question that you've raised, we didn't have any contact with representative of the Dominican Republic while we were there. We've met with the Corps Consulaire in Port-au-Prince, and I don't know the reasons why. It happened that way. The representative of the Dominican Republic was not present at that meeting, so I cannot answer your question.
Sure. Just one follow-up. I mean, I take your first answer to mean that Canada's monetary contribution wasn't impacted by whether the UN acknowledged its responsibility or not, but it seems many people would say that at least some countries were, or there's a dispute. Maybe you've seen Philip Alston's report saying that this legal hair splitting basically compounded the problem caused. So I just wanted you to, who's supposed to in the UN system tell the Secretariat when it has to make an admission, and did this system, if it exists, break down in this case?
Well, your question is raising very complex issues, and there's no, unfortunately, to your question, there's no one size fits all answer. It's a question of every situation will be unique in that respect, and there's no process you can put in place. There's no that actually answers all of the concern raised by your question. It's a question of the leadership of the United Nations in each case as to actually assess the facts and the situation and make a decision at that time.
Rosalind?